One more thing, and then we'll be done. And this is a really long lecture. We'll talk about the blood groups. So back in the day, when they would do blood transfusions, they noticed that people would just suddenly, die. And then they realized it's because the blood would clump. So they figured out finally that there were different blood groups, and they needed to do what's called a type and cross match. Of these blood groups, where you figure out that, like, if you have a patient who's going to have surgery, you would type their blood and then take a little bit of the donor blood and their blood, put it together, and make sure it doesn't clump. Blood groups. So let's say of the donor and recipient. To prevent blood clumping. And this clumping is basically part of the body's defense system. If it doesn't recognize something that should be there, it basically attacks it. So if you get the wrong type of blood, it's basically attacking that blood and clumping it. So on the outside of cells, including blood cells, you have what are called an antigen or antigens. And this is a molecule on the outside or the surface on let's just keep it to blood for right now, on a blood cell's surface. And it can promote an immune response. Can trigger an immune response. And the way that, or one of the ways the body does this, is through the use of antibodies. And this is the immune response that basically attacks unknown antigens. In the body. And this process of clumping is known as agglutination. Say that occurs when the antibodies attack an antigen or the antigens. Of the 32 known antigens that are on the surface of red blood cells anyway, there are two that are important, and you're, I'm sure, familiar with them. So two important antigen groups or antigen types. You have what's known as the ABO and then also the RH that are important for typing and cross-matching. And I'm going to switch to a black pen. So we've got blood type A, blood type B, blood type AB, and blood type O. So the let's say I should have left myself a little bit more room. The antigen on the red blood cell the antigen that's found on the type A, we're just going to call it the A antigen. On the surface of the type A blood cell. The type of antibody that's in type A is anti-B. So if a blood type A gets B type blood, the anti-B antibody will attack it, right? B blood has got the B antigen on the outside of it. So it's got the B antigen on the outside of the cell. The antibody that this one has is anti-A. So if a B blood type gets A blood, the anti-A attacks it. AB blood has both the A antigen and the B antigen on the outside. So A and B antigens. The type of antibody. So see if you can figure this out before I do it. If you have A, you have the anti-B. If you have B, you have the anti-A. So if you have A and B, what are you going to have? You're going to have no antibodies against A or B blood. Here on the last one, this is type O blood. They have no A or B antigens on the outside. So maybe by now you'll figure out what the antibodies are going to be. Let's draw a third one. It's going to have both anti-A and anti-B antibodies in O blood. So if type O gets A, B, or A and B, these antibodies recognize those antigens and attack it. Okay, it's a little confusing, but if you sit down and draw it out, it might help. In fact, it probably will help. So let's just kind of review. If you have type A blood, if you have A blood, you can accept blood from and donate blood to. If you have A-type blood, you can accept, I can't show this. If you have A-type blood, you can accept A or AB. I'm sorry, not AB, A or O. So you can accept blood from either A or O. If you have B-type blood, you can accept blood from HB, and O type. If you have AB, you can accept blood from A, from B, from AB, or from O. If you have O type blood, you can only accept blood from O. So they call O type blood the universal donor. If you have A type blood, you can donate blood to either someone who has A or AB. Right? So if you have A, you can donate blood from A or AB. If you have B type blood, B and AB. If you have AB blood, you can donate to A, B, AB, or O. If you have O, you can donate, again, the universal donor, A, B, AB, or O, which makes AB what is known as the universal recipient. Last one, the RH blood group. It's named RH because of the rhesus monkey, but it's like 50 different antigens that fall into this group. The most important one, though, is called the D antigen. And it acts similarly to the ABO blood groups. So if you're RH positive, you have the D, I should have drawn this a different color, antigen on the outside of your blood cells. And remember, if you're AB, you don't have anti-A, you don't have anti-B. So if you on this one, if you have the D, you have no anti-D antibodies. If you're RH negative, RH negative. So this is where it gets a little tricky. You need to be exposed to Rh positive blood before the body starts to produce the antibodies. So pre-exposure, and when I say exposure, that means if you get a transfusion that just happens to have Rh positive blood in it, that's an exposure. This can also happen during childbirth. So pre-exposure, you have no antibodies. But if you get exposed, anti-D antibodies, your body starts to produce them, are produced. So that if you get a second exposure to Rh positive blood, the body now attacks it, right? This can be a problem, they're controlling for this problem, the problem I'm about to explain. They take precautions now where they test the mother's blood and the baby's blood. But if, let's say, a mother, this is Rh negative. So she has no anti-D antibodies at first. If she has a baby, so if her first baby is Rh positive, there's a possibility that the baby's blood and the mother's blood will come in contact, so then the mother will start to produce anti-D producing anti-D antibodies. Okay. Then she has a second baby that is Rh positive. Guess what happens? Anti-D antibodies start to attack that baby. The mother's anti-D antibodies attack the second baby's blood. And this is a condition, hold on, it's not a erythroblastosis fetalis is the name of that condition, I guess. Or you can call it hemolytic disease. That's a little easier. Hemolytic disease. And again, I had a student who she was Rh negative and she had a Rh positive baby, and they basically, I can't remember how they did it, but they inject stuff and basically like drop down the problem of this actually happening. Okay. Oh boy, that was a long one. I apologize. I'll probably end up breaking this up into two, and you won't even realize I'm saying this until you get to the end. So anyway, enjoy. See you later.